All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today's lesson is actually a pretty short one. It's going to be about political bosses and political machines, and you're going to see what these people did. And at the very end, we're going to have a question basically of like, was it good or was it bad? And it's kind of one of those situations like you can see it both ways, so it's pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay. So we're going to analyze the impact the political bosses had politically and on their voters. Okay. So here is your warm up picture. Now, my question's asking you this. If you notice, right, all the guys are pointing to their right? If you look around, they're all pointing to the next person, next person, next person, next person, and so on and so forth. No one's saying like this guy and this guy. No, no, they're just all pointing to the right. So it just goes a continuous circle, right? So my question is this: in a situation like this, who do you blame? Do you talk to every single person? Do you say the one who looks the most guilty? I mean, how do you determine who is guilty? Whatever the problem may be. And if everyone's pointing at somebody else, you know, who do you blame? And how do you blame them? So again, think about that if you were in that type of scenario. And like I've used in the past, I give you the examples of like kids, like if someone broke a window, you'd be like, all these kids were playing outside, and you're like, who broke the window? And like they're basically all like that. They're all pointing to the person, to the right, and they're all like in a circle. So it's just like that. And all of them are pointing like that. Who do you blame? Do you blame them all? Do you blame only one? Some? None? I mean, how do you do it? Okay. So think about it. Write your response. Okay. Because we're moving on in three, two, one. So, many immigrants lived in cramped tenements. Tenements are these really small, tight apartments, like we talked about a couple weeks ago. If you remember how I basically showed you guys, like this is the bedroom for your warm-up picture. Like, could you live with your family in that small of area? That's how these places are. And if you look, this is how they basically dry their clothes right out in the open and stuff like that, because they had nowhere else to dry their clothes. You know the wealthy and middle class people actually moved away from the city. This is really the start of the suburbs, you know, at this time. And the reason why these wealthy and middle class people left the cities is because they would say, oh, ever since these immigrants came, crime has risen up. Um, in reality, guys, crime rate wasn't much different. You know, it wasn't any higher, or lower when the immigrants came. It was basically pretty consistent all the way through. But so that was just basically a cop out. It's just a way to blame um, them and basically for them to have an excuse to leave. But however, if they were to say something of like alcoholism was rising, okay, that they would have a case there. The sewer system was horrible. Sure, it was. The drinking water was horrible. Yeah, it was. You know, and then there was a bunch of diseases around. Yeah. Now, if they used those excuses, they would have a legitimate excuses because that is what happened in these tenement apartments. You know, workers were working, 12, 16 hours. These guys are tired. They just want to, so they would go to the blue bar and have some drinks, things like that. These sewage systems. Remember, if you remember, I told you guys they would have to share a restroom, and sometimes, it got backed up, and the landlords, and the superintendents of those apartments, they didn't care. They just wanted their money. So yeah, sometimes they would have to go restroom in buckets, and if you notice the windows there, they had to like toss it out, you know, uh, to the area below them. So if somebody was walking down below there, they might get a head full of nastiness, and then that nastiness would, go down into uh the gutter and stuff like that, and that would go into their drinking water and stuff. So yeah, it was really, really bad. And because of that, the bad drinking water and the closeness of everybody and stuff like that, if somebody got sick, the whole like floor got sick. Typhoid, cholera, fever. Just once it started, it just like ripped through an entire neighborhood and even the city sometimes. So there was a new political machine going around, and they noticed, man, these people are pretty upset. They don't like how things are. Here's the issues. And they figured we might as well use these people's anger to our advantage. So basically, they were telling these people, hey, look at it. Okay, I get you. You hate this, you hate that. Um, I'm running for political office. And I promise I'll help you try to get better jobs, better housing, get heating in your place. The you actually be protected by the police instead of being hounded by them. You know, all I want is your vote. Now, a lot of these, people, the immigrants and some of that were like, these persons promising a lot of stuff, and I don't know if they're gonna actually come through with it, but they kind of figured, you know what, we have nothing to lose. They're already at the bottom. And if you're at the bottom, there's only one way to go, and that's up. So they figured, might as well give these guys a shot. See if they actually do something. Even if they fix one of these problems, it's an improvement. So, yeah, they voted for them. Now, believe it or not, once these guys got into political office, they actually did what they were going to do. Okay, now, did they fix every single problem? No, but they did make life better for the people. But also, they got what they wanted. And they became known as the political machine bosses. A lot of these bosses wanted control of the city finances, meaning the tax money and stuff like that. And a lot of them, I mean, almost every single one of them had committed fraud. Okay. They got bribed from contractors, people who want to do like, oh, we need to build a street, from here to here, from, this area to our town. And they would basically tell these contractor guys, hey, put in a bid and they'd be like, telling some of the contractor, hey, if you give me an extra $15,000, $20,000, I'll give you the project, you know. And sometimes somebody underbid, they'd be like, oh, I'll charge you $50,000. Somebody might say, um, I'll charge you 100,000, and they would give the person the 100,000. They would give them the job. It's like, no, why are you spending 100,000 when you can get it for 50,000? Well, because the 100,000 person gave the bosses like 10,000, $20,000. And you have to remember these political bosses, they don't care about how much money they have to spend. It's not their money. It's the people's money. It's the government's money. So they don't care. They're like, yeah, here you go. They got that 20,000 now. That's theirs. So yeah, they were pretty corrupt. So they would build, roads, sewers, buildings, some of that. And any kickbacks, any company that gave kickbacks, the biggest ones, they would give them the contract. And also that on top of that, they gave their friends jobs that they were not qualified for. Things in utilities, the water and stuff like that, railroad, the power systems, things like that. These guys were in charge and they had no idea what to do. So what they would do is basically tell the person who's been working there for the longest, who knows all this stuff, you handle it. You know, if there's something important, let me know, and then I'll talk to my friend. You know. Now, one of the most corrupt dudes was this guy you see in the picture right there. That is Tammany Hall's William M. Boss Tweed. Of all the corrupt people that came at this time, he was by far the worst. He ran for the New York Democratic political machine from 1860 to the 1870s, and he ended up going to jail actually in 1874 because again he was corrupt as hell. I mean, he was the worst. And let's say like in Kansas City too, Kansas City, Missouri, there was a whole family in, intertwined with this. They were called the Pendergrass brothers, and they ran the state politics from 1890 to 1930s. So like when one brother was in charge, the other brother would do something, just wrong. and they might get in trouble, but all of a sudden the brother who's already in politics would save them, and it may give them another job doing this and that, and they just alternated, you know. So when one brother about to leave, quit because he retire, another brother would come in. They kept it in the family, for about a good 40 years. Um, Now here's the thing: some people were like, "Oh my gosh, these guys are so corrupt. They're so, this and that." But the people who were immigrants, people who were living in these horrible slums, were like, "Okay, yeah, I get it. These guys are corrupt. They did take some stuff, but here's the thing: they actually did something. They fixed the sewers. They made better buildings. They actually helped us, the immigrants, the poor people. They actually did something for us. What did the government do before that? Nothing. They just let these rich people be all corrupt, take our money, and we got nothing. At least these guys, yeah, they were crooked, but at least they did something to help the people. So, based off what you learned, do you think that the political bosses and the political machines were a good thing or a bad thing? And again, I know chances are you probably not didn't watch this, didn't listen to the lecture and stuff like that. So you're gonna make something up. And again, I read this, and if it doesn't make sense, like I could tell honestly that you did not read it. And it's not that hard because I could tell when something's vague or you pull something off the internet. I could tell. And if you do that, you're not getting any points. Plain and simple as that. Okay. So I said it here on this video. So if you didn't listen to it, that's your thing. That's not mine because, like I tell you guys, you're supposed to listen to these lecture videos. Okay. So, again, if you copy off the internet, if your answer is very vague or you just don't answer it, you're not getting the points for this question. Okay. So, for those of you guys who were paying attention, were listening, I do apologize for that. But again, this is just covering my back. So, when I grade and I just mark it off, I don't want to hear none from these students because, hey, I said it, I did it. It's not my fault that they weren't paying attention, that they weren't listening. So, okay. So, with that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later, all right?